Welcome to Speak English Avenue. 1 month changed my entire life. I was afraid to speak English. My words would freeze every time. People laughed, and I felt small. But something inside me refused defeat. I picked up my phone daily. I listened to native speakers carefully. I repeated every single word aloud. My mouth started moving with confidence. My fear began slowly fading away. Can you imagine speaking without fear? I could not, but I tried. Every morning I practiced for hours. Every night I reviewed my mistakes. I never once considered giving up. My first conversation was a miracle. Strangers actually understood every single word. My heart was beating so fast. I smiled like never before then. Something powerful had shifted inside me. What if you started today too? You have everything that I had. You have a voice worth hearing. You have a story worth telling. Your English journey deserves to begin. I remember one cold, quiet morning. I stood alone facing my mirror. I spoke clearly without stopping once. My reflection smiled proudly back at me. That moment felt deeply and completely real. Could 1 month really change everything? For me, the answer was yes. I stopped waiting for perfect conditions. I stopped comparing myself to others. I just kept moving forward bravely. My accent was never truly perfect. But my courage grew every day. People began listening more carefully now. My words carried real, honest emotion. My voice finally found its power. Fear was living deep inside me. It was not just simple nervousness. This fear was heavy and real. Every time I opened my mouth, something would tighten inside my chest. My voice would disappear without warning. I remember sitting in my classroom. The teacher asked me one question. Everyone turned and looked at me. My face went completely red instantly. My hands were shaking under the desk. I could not say a single word. That silence felt like forever to me. People around me started quietly laughing softly. I looked down and said nothing. I promised myself never again speaking. That promise made everything much worse, actually. Fear does not stay small forever. It grows when you feed it silence. Every day I avoided English conversations. Every day the fear became stronger inside. I stopped raising my hand in class. I stopped joining group discussions completely then. Have you ever felt this way before? Like your voice simply does not matter. Like everyone else speaks better than you. That feeling is not just yours alone. Millions of people carry this same weight. You are not broken or less worthy. I started believing I was different negatively. I thought my brain was not capable. I thought English was not for me. These thoughts were loud and very convincing. They followed me everywhere I went daily. They sat with me every single night. But one evening, something small happened quietly. I heard a man speaking on television. His English was not perfectly smooth either. He paused, he stumbled, he still continued. Nobody laughed at him at all then. Everyone was actually listening to him carefully. That moment cracked something open inside me. I realized fear was just a story I kept telling myself repeatedly, a story that had no real ending, but also a story I could rewrite. That thought felt both scary and exciting. I did not become brave overnight suddenly. Courage does not arrive like that ever. It comes one small step forward. It comes one repeated word at a time. It comes when you choose discomfort bravely. It comes when you speak despite shaking. I started whispering English words alone nightly. Nobody was watching, and that felt safe. My bedroom became my first practice stage. The walls heard every mistake I made, but the walls never once laughed back. That small safety gave me real strength. Fear wants you to stay completely silent. Fear tells you that you will fail. Fear shows you only your worst moments, but fear never shows you your growth. Fear never shows you your future self. Fear only wins when you stop trying. I was still afraid every single morning, but I was also moving forward slowly. Daily practice was my only real secret. It was not talent or special gift. It was not luck or perfect timing. It was just showing up every day, simple, consistent, and deeply committed every morning. That was the only real difference made. I remember my very first daily routine. I woke up before the sun rose. The house was completely quiet and still. I picked up my phone with intention. I opened one English lesson every morning. That one habit changed everything for me. Have you ever planted a seed before? You water it and see nothing immediately. Days pass and still nothing appears above. But something is growing deep underground quietly. Daily practice works exactly the same beautiful way. You cannot always see progress right away. I listened to native speakers every morning. Their rhythms slowly entered my mind deeply. Their pronunciations started feeling more familiar daily. I was not copying them perfectly yet, but my ears were becoming sharper gradually. My brain was absorbing patterns without knowing. I repeated every sentence I heard carefully, sometimes the same sentence 20 times over. My mouth felt awkward and uncomfortable. Often, the sounds did not come naturally yet, but I kept repeating without stopping myself. Repetition was building a new muscle quietly. Every single night I reviewed my mistakes. I did not run away from errors. I sat with them and studied carefully. Each mistake was showing something valuable. Each error was pointing toward real improvement. I started seeing mistakes as honest teachers. Can you commit to just 1 hour? Just 60 minutes of focused daily practice. Not perfect practice, but just honest effort. Not impressive performance, but just quiet dedication. That 1 hour compounded into something powerful. That 1 hour became my strongest foundation. I did not wait for motivation always. Motivation comes and goes like the weather. Some mornings I truly did not feel ready. Some days felt heavy and completely draining, but I practiced anyway without any excuse. Discipline carried me when motivation was absent. I started using English in small moments, thinking in English while making morning tea, describing what I saw on my walk, talking softly to myself in the mirror. These tiny habits added up so quietly. Nobody noticed, but I was always changing. Consistency does not ask for your perfection. It only asks for your honest presence. It only needs you to show up, even on your most difficult and tired days. Even when progress feels invisible and slow, even when doubt is louder than belief. I was not the most talented student. I did not have expensive coaching available. I did not have a perfect environment either. But I had one thing working strongly. I had the decision to practice daily. That decision became my most powerful tool. Some days I practiced for just minutes. Those minutes still counted and still mattered. Progress was happening even in small doses. Every word repeated was a brick laid. Every lesson completed was a wall built. Something real was being constructed inside me. Small moments carry the biggest real power. Nobody tells you this at the beginning. Everyone talks about big, dramatic, visible transformations. Everyone shows you the final polished result. But nobody shows you the quiet moments, those invisible moments where everything actually shifts. I did not expect progress to feel small. I thought growth would arrive loudly somehow. I thought one day everything would click, like a switch turning on inside me. But real progress does not work that way. It sneaks up on you completely quietly. My first breakthrough happened in the mirror. It was an ordinary, cold, quiet morning. I was not preparing for anything special. I just stood there and started speaking. The words came out without stopping once. I did not plan that moment at all. Something felt completely different that one morning. My voice was steady and surprisingly calm. My sentences were connecting without forced effort. I was not translating inside my head anymore. The English was just flowing out naturally. I stood there almost not believing myself. Have you ever surprised yourself completely unexpectedly? Have you ever exceeded your own expectations? That mirror moment was exactly like that. It was not for anyone else watching. It was just me witnessing my own growth. That made it feel even more powerful. Small victories are deeply and personally yours. Nobody can take that feeling away ever. Nobody was there to validate that moment, but I did not need anyone else there. I had seen something real inside myself. That private proof became my strongest fuel. My first real conversation was another miracle. I was not expecting it to go well. I walked in with quiet, nervous energy, but my words came out surprisingly clear. The other person nodded and understood completely. That small nod changed something deep inside. I remember the exact feeling of that. My chest felt light and completely open, like a weight had finally been lifted, like I had been holding my breath forever. And in that moment, I finally exhaled. Something long trapped inside me was free. These moments do not announce themselves beforehand. They do not come with any warning signs. They arrive quietly in the middle of ordinary. They arrive when you least expect anything. They arrive because you kept showing up daily. They are the reward of invisible daily effort. Can you remember your own small victory, a moment when something finally felt right? A moment when fear stepped slightly back. A moment when your voice felt real. Those moments are not accidents or coincidences. They are the result of your hidden work. Progress hides itself for a very long time. It lives underneath the surface, growing silently. It builds without giving you any signs. It asks you to trust the process completely. It asks you to keep going without proof. It asks for faith before showing results. I started collecting these small moments carefully. Every tiny win went into my memory. Every small breakthrough became a personal treasure. On difficult days, I would revisit them quietly. They reminded me that I was actually moving. They reminded me that something real was happening. The mirror moment was just the beginning. The first conversation was just one door. Behind that door were countless more waiting. Each small moment was opening the next one. Each quiet victory was building the next courage. Something unstoppable was slowly being set in motion. Comparison was quietly stealing my every day. I did not even notice it happening. It felt so natural and completely normal. Scrolling through videos of fluent English speakers, watching people speak so effortlessly and smoothly, and then looking back at myself painfully. I would watch someone speak perfect English. Their accent was clean and completely polished. Their vocabulary felt rich and deeply impressive. And I would immediately think about myself. Why can I not sound like that? That question was Poison dressed as motivation. Comparison never shows you the full picture. It only shows you someone else's highlight. It never shows you their years of struggle. It never shows you their early embarrassing mistakes. It never shows you the nights they cried. It only shows you where they arrived finally. I was comparing my beginning to their middle. I was comparing my chapter 1 to their 10. That was never a fair, honest comparison. That was a game I could never win. And playing that game was exhausting me completely. It was draining energy I desperately needed elsewhere. Have you ever stopped yourself mid-sentence suddenly because someone else seemed more fluent than you? Because their English sounded more natural and smooth? That pause was not humility or self-awareness. That pause was comparison doing its quiet damage. That pause was stealing your voice away. Slowly, I started waiting for the perfect moment, waiting until my accent became more natural, waiting until my vocabulary felt more impressive, waiting until I could speak without any mistakes. But that perfect moment never actually arrived ever. Perfection kept moving further away every single day. Waiting is just fear wearing a disguise. It feels responsible and even a little wise. It tells you to prepare just a little more. It tells you that you are almost ready, but almost ready never becomes fully ready alone. Act E. On is the only thing that creates readiness. I spent months waiting for perfect conditions. The right environment, the right teacher, the right time. But life never arranges itself so perfectly ever. The conditions were never going to be ideal. I was using waiting as a comfortable hiding place. A place where failure could never actually reach me. Can you see how waiting becomes a trap? How preparation without action becomes its own prison? How the search for perfect becomes the enemy of the progress that is already possible today, of the voice that is already good enough, of the journey that is already worth starting. I made one decision that shifted everything completely. I decided to stop waiting and start speaking. Not when I was ready, but right now. Not when my English was perfect, but today. Not when comparison no longer hurt, but despite it. That decision felt terrifying and completely liberating simultaneously. I stopped measuring myself against other people entirely. I started measuring myself against my own yesterday. Was I slightly better than last week? Was I slightly braver than last month? That became my only honest measuring stick. That comparison was one. I could actually win. The moment I stopped comparing, I accelerated. Energy that was wasted on others returned. That energy went back into my own practice. That energy went back into my own voice. That energy went back, this guy into my own journey, and everything around me started changing noticeably faster. Waiting and comparing are comfortable but costly habits. They feel safe, but they steal your time. They feel logical, but they block your growth. They feel protective, but they keep you small. They whisper that you are being responsible somehow, but they are quietly keeping you completely stuck. Courage was never about being perfectly ready. It was never about having zero fear. It was never about having zero fear. It was never about sounding completely flawless. Courage was simply choosing to speak anyway, even when my voice was slightly shaking, even when my words were not perfect. I was never the most talented English speaker. My accent carried the weight of my roots. Every syllable revealed exactly where I came from. Some people noticed and some people smiled differently, not always with kindness and not always gently. But I kept speaking despite all of that. My accent was mine and deeply personal. It told my story without any words. It carried my culture, my family, my home. I used to see it as a weakness, something to hide and something to fix quickly. But slowly I began seeing it differently entirely. Have you ever tried to erase yourself completely? Tried to sound like someone you are not? Tried to remove every trace of your origin? That erasure does not create confidence inside you. It only creates a performance that exhausts why. Ooh. Real confidence grows from accepting your authentic voice. I stopped trying to sound like others completely. I started focusing on being clearly understood instead. Clarity became more important than perfect pronunciation ever. Connection became more valuable than flawless accent always. When I shifted that focus, everything felt lighter. The pressure of perfection slowly began lifting away. Emotion was the thing that made people listen. Not my grammar, and not my vocabulary size. Not my accent, and not my sentence structure. It was the feeling behind every single word. When I spoke with genuine, honest, real emotion, people leaned in and actually paid close attention. I remember speaking about something I truly loved. My voice changed completely in that one moment. It became warmer and surprisingly more confident naturally. I was not thinking about grammar rules anymore. I was just feeling and speaking simultaneously together, and the room responded to that authentic energy. Courage showed up most in vulnerable, honest moments. When I admitted I did not know something, when I asked someone to repeat themselves kindly, when I mispronounced a word and kept going, when I laughed at my own honest mistake, those moments built more trust than perfection ever could. Can you imagine speaking from your whole heart? Not from a rehearsed and carefully prepared script? Not from a place of ear, and performance? But from a place of genuine, real feeling. That kind of speaking cannot be easily ignored. That kind of voice reaches people deeply inside. People do not remember perfect robotic English speeches. They remember how a voice made them feel. They remember the warmth behind the honest words. They remember the courage it took to speak. They remember the realness that came through clearly. Perfection fades, but authentic emotion stays with people. I started carrying my imperfections with quiet pride. Each mistake was proof that I was trying. Each stumble was evidence of real, honest courage. Each imperfect sentence was a step being taken. Nobody who stays silent ever makes any mistakes. Only the ones moving forward ever stumble openly. My voice was finding its own natural strength, not because I had become suddenly perfectly fluent, but because I had stopped abandoning it daily. I had stopped silencing it out of fear. I had stopped shrinking it to please others. I had started letting it breathe and grow. Courage compounds exactly the way practice does, quietly. Each brave moment makes the next one easier. Each honest word opens the door slightly wider. Each imperfect sentence builds the next stronger one. You do not need to be fearless ever. You only need to be one step braver.